Hello, everyone. Welcome to Creative Retail Talks. I am Braden Cook, and I am part of the Creative Sales Consulting Tribe. For the next 6 episodes, our tribe will be bringing back some of our favorite episodes that Quentin has recorded over the past 2 years. I will be announcing and introing those staff picks. And for the first pick, we decided to go with the episode that features Michael Barker. This episode is full of incredibly insightful information on how to keep customers and employees happy, the positive effects of having employees fully engaged, and the research and analytics that are necessary to measure whether your customers and employees are truly satisfied, all of which are at the heart of a great business. We hope you enjoy it.
Hey everyone, welcome to Creative Retail Talks. I am here today with the one and only Michael Barker, the CEO of AVID Insights, chairman of Momenta Inc., and also, and we'll talk about this a little bit, probably a recovering lawyer.
Hi, this is Clint O'Rear. Thanks for joining the Creative Retail Talks podcast today, where we will be discussing the latest in life, business, and retail.
So Michael, good to have you with us. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet. All right. So first of all, I'm going to tell the audience, you're one of the funniest people I've ever been around. So, this will probably end up being kind of half of a comedy routine and half of a very insightful podcast.
You're putting the pressure on me now.
I know, man. So you better have some good jokes ready. So let's go way back to when your journey started through the retail and creative industry. Actually, I'm going to go a step further than that. I think I remember you had some kind of a mail order business in college. So let's start there. Tell us about the mail order business.
You did.
Yeah, man. I research all my guests.
Well, that's interesting. So my parents started making craft products before I was born. They sold jewelry, the handmade jewelry to the dorms at UNH, University of New Hampshire. So when I was born, they were jewelers. I got right into the family business as a kid. I worked in the shipping department, packaging up paints and stencils, because they made mostly paints and stencils at the time. And then when I got into high school, I started doing a lot of craft fairs. So I would buy the supplies from them, and I would then go to these craft fairs on the weekends, and I'd sell the stuff to all these women who came with all their cash. And back then it was mostly cash. You didn't have this, the Square or any of the other, credit card stuff. So I learned the value of, making a real buck every day.
Right.
And so I did that for years. Into college, I did a mail order. So I did the shows on the weekends, and I placed ads in Country Living magazine and some other kinds of, home decor magazines, and mailed out catalogs because there was no internet, and sold stencils and paints and all those supplies. So my main source was my parents' business, but I kept my own inventory. I had at one point 6 part-time employees, 800 number, which was 1-800-2-stencil was the
wow,
telephone number.
Impressive.
Yeah, and then I always wanted to go to law school, so I sold the business to my parents. So they started a direct-to-consumer B2C business. They didn't have one before. They never bothered doing it, so they took it over. It was called the Stencil Outlet. And then later on, I helped them create getcrafts.com when the internet came up. So they had that for a while, which kind of was a extension of the original business. I went to law school, I went and got my MBA, and I went into software. So I totally got out of crafting and swore I'd never get back into it again.
And so let's talk about college for a second. So I know you got your law degree and your MBA from Boston College. Tell us what made you decide to invest the time and money, which I know was a lot of both probably, to get both law degree and MBA.
So I always wanted to be a lawyer. When I was a little kid, I wanted to drive a Jaguar and be a lawyer in court. Those are when I was 10 years old, I had the whole thing figured out. So I always wanted to go. So I got into Boston College, which I was super excited about. And it was right in Boston. So I went. And when I got there, I realized the law is a lot more about research and writing than it is about arguing your case in court, right? And a lot of research, a lot of writing, and the people that go to law school, for the most part, and I have some very good friends that I went to school with, but for the most part, are very confrontational, argumentative. And the whole education teaches you to pick apart the other side's argument and build your case. So it's a really hostile environment in general. BC Law School let you take up to 12 credits at the MBA program. So I took a tax class over there, an entrepreneurship class over there, and a few other classes, and they counted towards my law degree. And so when I graduated, I didn't want to be a lawyer. So I graduated law school, but I looked around for an MBA program. I liked the business a lot. So BC offered me a scholarship and gave me credit for my law school classes and gave me credit for the business school classes. So I was able to do the MBA in 1 year, which was nice.
Yeah.
The crazy part was, though, now that you're asking me, and since, this is like an interview, I'm not to tell you, but that summer after I graduated law school, I took the bar exam. I studied for the bar exam, and I took the New York bar exam, which is really not an easy bar exam at all. And that summer, to get a junior, died in a plane crash, and they just kept seeing on the news every day how he failed the bar 6 times in New York, right? So I'm studying for the bar that summer, and it was a tragedy that he died, but I'm studying the bar. And all I kept hearing was how he took it 6 times and failed 6 times. And we're all like, what are we doing? So I took that while I was also taking a couple of MBA classes at night to get ahead.
Yeah.
So it was a crazy summer. Did the bar. I passed the bar, never practiced law ever. I'm now retired in the field of law, and then got my MBA and went to work for a software company instead.
Yeah. All right. So you're in the software company. You've sworn away the craft industry. So what happened after that?
So I went to work for this e-commerce software company. So they're online business for retailers, help people find products. So back then, this is like 2000, right? So if you wanted to search for a red sweater, the technology wasn't really good, and you couldn't really make it easy for people to find that sweater. So Land's End became a customer, Coldwater Creek became a customer, Lamps.com, Coach, and we were able to show how our technology of natural language search, so someone could easily type in red sweater and it would pull up results for just red sweaters. So that technology had been around for a long time. We repositioned it at this company called Easy Ask for e-commerce. And we saw up to 400% increase in conversion on these websites. It worked really well, but I was anxious to get to New York City. So I was there for about 2 years. And I started interviewing in New York to move to New York City with my wife, who was finishing law school in New York. I had just started interviewing in August of 2001. And then, September 11th, 2001 came along, and it was a very impactful day for a lot of people in a lot of different ways. I mean, for us, it made us pause whether we should be moving to New York City right then. So that was the turning point to come back to New Hampshire and to take over the family business. So I swore I'd never move to New Hampshire. I'd never get back into crafting. And then somehow my wife and I said, let's do it for 2 years. Let's go up there for 2 years. My mother had 55 or so employees. They were manufacturing and they were shipping, doing everything right out of New Hampshire. And she's an artist and she really didn't want to do it anymore. So I came up to kind of help her fix the business and probably sell it, right? Probably, stay for 2 years and then sell it and move back to New York and get back into software. Here we are, 20 years later, and I'm going to New Hampshire. But I am getting myself out of the craft business to a certain extent. I am getting myself back into software to a certain extent. So I'm finally kind of moving in that direction.
Yeah. And I definitely want to come back and talk about that in a second. But for just a second, let's talk about that company you came back to. So Momenta. And I know, Momenta was a big part of the scrapbook craze that began back around that time. Talk about just kind of what that ride was like and how Momenta evolved through that period.
So when I came into Momenta, they were really focused on stencils and paints and home decorating. And they had tried to get they have little metal stencils that were good for stampers to use, making cards. So they were trying, when I got into the company, to their credit, they realized that scrapbooking was turning into a big category. So they were trying to take their stencils and sell them into the market. And people really didn't care about stencils in scrapbooking at all. They wanted stickers and paper. So I came in and I didn't know anything about this market at all. So I immediately said, we need to talk to consumers about, what do they want? What do they need? What do they use? We even had a debate about what size scrapbook was the standard size scrapbook. So the standard at the time was a 12 by 12. That was what everybody was using. But the people at my company thought 8.5 by 11 made more sense. It was more practical, right? We had this debate. I'm like, well, it doesn't matter what we think in New Hampshire. What's the market? So I immediately started doing focus groups, just initially right in New Hampshire. And my background was in marketing. I'd been, marketing at the software company where we built the whole messaging and positioning of the product in the marketplace. And it was really all about finding out what the market needed and then either developing that product or making sure that those features and benefits were communicated correctly to, target audience.
Yep.
So here it's the same exact thing, but so what do people want, and then how do you communicate and message that? So started doing focus groups in New Hampshire, and then we started incenting the small independent retailers around the country to do focus groups. We'd send them supplies and free product, and we give them a credit, $200. I think we gave them for product, and they would run the focus groups. So we started doing a lot of these. We did them throughout New England ourselves, and we did them across the country, and started getting the feedback on what people wanted. And so we were right there. We were all about scrapbooking. We tried to, bring innovation, but it was also about design. So a big part of it was design at the time. And almost anything you made sold. I mean, it was just, you go in to see a customer and, show them, and they're like, they bought it all. It was a crazy time. It was a great time. I didn't appreciate how difficult it could be to sell to retail, because that was my first experience, right?
Yeah.
The company grew about 500% in 5 years. I mean, we just kept going. It was just going straight up. So a lot about design. So we bring design boards to the focus groups, and we have people write comments and circle stuff on the boards, and then bring that back to the design team. We at one point had 29 designers on staff, and so we were making it all ourselves.
Wow.
We transitioned later on to licensing artwork a lot more. So rather than just making it all ourselves, we would license the artwork, and that it saved us so much time and quite honestly money, because you internally you're making this art only for yourself, and if no one picks it up, it's wasted. Whereas if you're licensing, that artist is making it for bed linens and for wall, all kinds of stuff, and then you're only you're paying them if you use it for your product.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot more sense. We able to show the designs to these consumers. Then a little bit later, 2010 or so, we really moved everything online and started doing all of our focus groups online. So we started doing a lot of surveys online rather than in person. And then we did we licensed the software that let us show artwork. And so the respondents to our surveys could circle and make comments on the artwork the same way they did in real life. So the responses were quicker, more accurate, because you're getting responses from all over the country. So you're getting a better sampling with a higher confidence interval for the results. And it helped really drive our business. So yeah, we were there for scrapbooking. We were there when scrapbooking went down. The business has changed a lot since then, in the last 10 years. But everything we do at Momenta, we leverage the consumer insights to help drive the business and have a higher chance of success at retail, right?
Yeah. I definitely know that's one of your strengths at Momenta for sure. And then something that Momenta does probably better than most people out there. So, all right. So you're doing this consumer insight market research for Momenta. How did you decide to take that and start AVID Insights?
So for years, we did our own research for Momenta, and we also did research for the retailers, right? We always helped the buyers understand their market. So I built up, over 10 years of experience of having consumers go into stores and do secret shopper projects, having consumers try out products, having consumers take surveys about the market and what they're looking for and what products they like and don't like, brand awareness, brand recognition. So all of this basic development around product development, and also just shopper insights, general shopper insights. And we also, by the way, did quite a bit of employee surveys at the time. I mean, I did them for friends, for other companies. I also did them for Momenta. So I love research. I love data. And so when we started doing the surveys for shoppers, we also said, let's do the employee surveys too. So for, over a decade now, I've really been about understanding the employees. I believe if your employees are happy and healthy or engaged, you're going to be more successful. And I also believe if your shoppers are really highly engaged, you're going to be more successful. So even before we launched AVID, this has been the foundation of Momenta, and outside of Momenta, but never for money, right? I did it because I enjoyed it, and it was never really a revenue stream for us. It just helped support our business. To be blunt, when Trump announced that he was going to put tariffs on everything coming in from overseas, and we were going to be America first, nothing we do is made in America, and nothing we do can really be made in America. I mean, all the products that Momenta makes have to be made overseas. I've tried desperately to get products made in America, and it's been impossible for our category. I do have friends, other companies that have been able to move stuff back to the US, and because of the tariffs and other things, and because of timing, logistics with freight, have been able to make it work, but we haven't been able to. So I got really, really concerned about the pressure on the business. And I had been doing all of this consumer insight, employee insight work for years. So how do we productize it and start making it into by the way, there's no inventory, right? So you don't bring stuff in from overseas. There's different
no tariffs on research, right?
No tariffs on research, right? Exactly. So I decided to launch the business, and that's how it started.
Okay.
And, so I incorporated, set up a separate company, and started building the plan, which included hiring a more senior team at Momenta too, to be honest. So I could start the transition out.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, there's a whole other podcast in that we won't get to right now because I want to get to AVID Insights. But so you have kind of stepped back from Momenta, right? Taken on a chairman role, not as active day to day. That right there is a step so many business leaders and small business owners try to get to. So maybe we will do another podcast on that, actually.
It's hard. Having gone through it, it's a very, very hard transition. I really relate it to my son's turning 16 in about 8 months, right? So he's going to be getting keys to a car My wife wants it to be a tank. She's trying to save up for a tank
Right.
right now. But and so we're going to have to give him the keys and watch him drive out of the yard. You've been through this, Clint. So you know
Yep,
exactly
I have.
what it's like. And I kind of feel like that's what it's like with this business. I'm trying to step back and let the team. We have monthly check-ins with the whole team. I act as the board, and I meet with my COO once a week. And as needed, they call me in. But I'm really out of that business, and it's terrifying.
Right. And just like with kids, I'm sure you have to let your team fail forward at times. And, you know, just like as a parent, I'm sure as an owner and chairman, that can be hard as well. So let's come back to that. That'd be another great podcast to do, just to talk about that whole journey. And
my rate goes up though for the second podcast. You know, it's like the sequel to the first movie. You know, the rates go. Well, I say that, but we don't have the view numbers for this one yet. So maybe I should wait until we see the viewership, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. So I think you get a $5 Starbucks gift card on this one. So we'll make it 10 on the next one. So you alluded to this a minute ago, but I love your tagline. And we talked about this one time when you were sharing with me what you were doing, but let's talk about your tagline for a minute. So happy customers plus happy employees equals a healthy business. That is a great tagline. And a lot of people try to focus on happy customers. That makes sense, right? But where have you seen people miss it on the happy employee side? And what do you see as the benefit for those people that do focus on the happy employee side?
There is so much data. You know, it's hard. Like, I don't want to get too down a rabbit hole here, but there's so much data supporting that statement right there, right? I mean, it's such a simple statement. And there's just reams of data. Every month, there's a new study from whoever. And McKinsey does a lot of them. McKinsey's great for this, but that supports if your employees are happy and engaged. So talk about that, right? Talk about the employee. People get the customer one fine. Happy, engaged employees have a huge impact. If you reduce turn by 20%, you increase profits by, it's more than 20%. So you have two issues with employees. I mean, two different kinds of employees, essentially. You have office, if you're thinking about retail for a second, right? You've got office employees, corporate office, and you have the frontline workers. And a lot of businesses have them. You got the office workers and frontline. And then you have companies that don't have frontline workers. They're all office employees. And we have a client who is a large architectural firm. And so we've done some work with them in a wide variety of different companies, right? And they're all different walks of life. A lot of them aren't facing consumers at all. So we've seen just that. What's one example, but we've seen a bunch of different variety of customers with them. So when you have the office workers that don't have this, customer focus, those employees, if you lose one of them, there's an incredible loss of knowledge, a tribal knowledge. And we've seen it. And you're seeing it right now. 37% of employees today are saying they're looking at switching jobs because of COVID. It's the highest percent ever. So the tribal knowledge is lost. Is almost unquantifiable, and you have to go find another employee. So if you can keep your employees happy and engaged, then you're not going to have turnover. And then number two, if those employees have any interaction with the customer at all, so even office workers, but definitely frontline workers. The frontline workers are the lowest paid workers. They have the biggest impact. So we do a lot of consumer shopper research, a lot of it. And number one, the top of the list always, number one, number two, is engagement with the staff at the store level, right? Whatever it is, it's a telephone call or the store or the chat. If they have a good interaction with that frontline worker, then they are going to have a high score, a health score. I'll tell you about the health score, but they'll have a high health score. If they don't have a good interaction, that health score is very low. Yeah. So we have a proprietary health ID that we created based on some real good science. Essentially, it is loyalty, satisfaction, and likelihood to recommend. So it's not just NPS. Everybody knows NPS, right? How likely are you to recommend blah, blah, blah. Yeah. That's not a great indicator. It's okay. It's not great. So we do use that, but we combine it with loyalty and satisfaction. How likely are you to continue working or continue shopping? How likely are you to recommend working at this company or shopping at this retailer? So you combine those, you get the score. If you get a score over 80, you're doing good. If you're doing over 90, you get great. It's a 0 to 100 scale. Anything under 80, you're really failing. You're unhealthy. You get down into the 60, you're dying. And we've correlated that score with retailer and company success. So it's what the turnover is of the company or what the kind of the growth and profitability is of the retailer. So those metrics we've tied to the engagement And so it's that health ID score, really. So, if the employee is happy, you're gonna see a higher health ID score. If the shopper, the customer is happy, you're gonna see a higher health ID score, more engaged. You're gonna have long-term success. I don't know, that's a long-winded answer to your simple question, Clint, but
no, it's a great answer.
So I kept talking.
It's a great answer and an important answer. And I'll tell you, so I had a chance to visit with Gary Ridge, the CEO of WD-40 a few weeks ago. We did a podcast episode a few episodes back. And his whole philosophy is servant leadership to build a company culture that creates happy employees. And by doing that, he has 10x the value of WD-40 over about the last 20 years or so. And he attributes the success to that single thing right there. And so, no, I think you're right on the money with that. And it's so interesting how many companies don't focus on that. And like I said a minute ago, they focus a lot on trying to keep the customer happy, but I think they miss that happy employees make happy customers. So I love that you're measuring that and helping drive that.
Yeah, we do, Clint. I mean, it is that it's the number one driver for customer satisfaction is the engagement they have with the employees, whatever engagement is with your employees. So if your employees are unhappy, but you think you're delivering on time, the best price, the stores are clean and brightly lit, great. You're hitting a few of the things that matter. But when we do a driver correlation with our health ID score. So with our clients, we don't share anybody else's confidential information, right? We have non-disclosures and everything's private, but we do look at aggregated information, in aggregate, unidentifiable to a particular client. We also collect our own data. So we pay to collect data about retailers in particular. So we have our own index that we create. And so we're able to really understand across a wide variety of retailers and companies the impact. And there's variation among every company. So every engagement, even though I want every engagement to be exactly the same, it's the most efficient, every single client has uniqueness to their business, but 80% is the same. And it's same across a whole bunch of businesses. So the engagement that a customer has with an employee is the number one driver of customer satisfaction. And so if you can impact the employee, you're going to impact the customer. And then you also want to make sure you impact the customer independently too. And some things are important to them that might be surprising. And so when we go out, and I'm going to go off on a tangent here. So what we do is on the shopper side, right? When we're working with a company, there's a few things we do. So we look at on the shopper side, we do product development research. So 95% of products are developed with zero research. 95%.
It blows my mind.
Zero. So I think that's horrible. I'm completely opposed to that. And I think it's the biggest waste of money and time to not do a check-in before you launch a product. It makes no sense to me at all. So
I agree.
That's just my 2 cents on that. We're doing that for over 20 years now. It's not expensive and you get a huge amount of insights. Why would you not do it? But anyway, it takes a little bit more time and people don't do it. They run, but then you're stitching time, right? So we do that work. If you're looking at shoppers and what's going to really impact your business from a shopper perspective, product development is important. Make sure you have the right products, right? But then separately, the whole experience that they have, whether they're in the store, they're online, however the engagement is. So we do a couple of things. One, we do a lot of surveys because surveys are they work. I mean, it's as horrible it is, and they work. We spend a lot of time making sure we get good quality results. So one of the secrets in the research industry that nobody wants to talk about is the quality of the responses you get. You can go out, you can pay for responses and get responses. I need 554 responses. I need this demographic profile. Go. Well, fine. In 24 hours, for $3 a pop, I can get you those answers. But where's the quality? So we spend a lot of time. We reject about 25% of the responses that we get when we go out and we get people to take surveys. Most companies reject about 5%. But you get survey information in. We also, for our clients, go out and get the data from social. In particular, places like Yelp and Google reviews have great data on what's working and not working for a retailer. So we pull that data in. So from social, we get the surveys. So we collect the data. We then have our own proprietary engine that does an analysis on the data to highlight what's really important. And then we visualize that for you. And we do the reporting. We present the research. We present the insights, but you can also log into this platform that we've created that I think is fabulous, of course. And you can visualize. You can look at the data on your own. We have some some hypothetical projections on there. So if you look at the health ID score, you can say, well, if I improve my staff helpfulness, what does that do? If I make the store less clean, if the score for cleanliness goes down, what does that do to my health ID score? And for your specific business, for your specific segment of customers, you can filter by, you can say, I want, just the women that are 30 to 50. What do they think? You can then see the impact to your business based on changing some of the drivers for the customer experience. So that's on the shopper side. And on the employee side, it's the same thing. We go in and we look at Glassdoor and other online social sites that have reviews about employees at companies. We pull that data in, and then we do surveys and we pull that data in. We do the same analysis. We highlight the most important factors and we publish it so you can filter and you can see the visuals. All of the employee data is anonymous. On the shopper side, it's not anonymous, and we allow you, if you want, to engage with that shopper, right? It depends if you want. Some clients want to be able to respond. Some say, I don't want to ask because I don't want to have to respond. And we encourage you to respond because it's really important to build that dialogue, and it's very powerful. But there is times if you're getting, 200 responses a day, right? You just, do you have the team in place to really manage that effectively? And if you say, let us know, and then you don't let them know, that's worse than not asking.
Yeah, that's a good point. So you're working on the supplier side and the retailer side. What would you say, just ballpark, what's kind of the mix of the companies you're working with right now? What percentage supplier, what percentage retailer?
So at a high level, the business is really split 50-50 employee and customer, right? Mm-hmm. It really is. And that just sort of happened. I think it was heavier on shopper, customer side, but COVID really has built up more of the employee part of the business. There's a lot of people coming saying, we really want to understand what's going on now with COVID. And once you start that, then it's good to check in with your employees. These pulse surveys, there's companies out there doing pulse surveys monthly, one question and giving high fives. We don't do that. We recommend 2, maybe 3 surveys a year. The other option is you do 4 very, very short surveys a year, but that's the most. So it's between 1 and 4 a year. We do the health ID questions every time, and we mix up the other questions. And then, if it's a 4 time a year versus a 1 time a year, mix the questions up. And really, companies can't react more than that. And so we really try to build a custom solution around the company. That's about half the business. And on the shopper side, really looking at shoppers, it's mostly retailer focused business. The product development has been going down. And it's kind of funny, really, because that's the biggest part of our experience over 20 years, product development experience. And that's becoming less, even when it's really it's the most important part of your business. I mean, if you're developing products, whether you're a retailer or you're a supplier, if you aren't doing a reality check on your ideas before putting a lot of time and money into them, and just having the retailer say yes or no, by the way, it's great. They know their market really well, so they are the voice of the customer. But it's 1, 2, 3 people, and the demographics for their shoppers can be quite different, and they're making a big investment too. So I think it's prudent to help them be successful by getting that input. But it is a smaller part of our business. It's that's like maybe 25% of the shopper side. And it's 50% in the other employee. And I can't do the math on that now, but what percent overall is the
come on, you've got an MBA. You should be able to do that.
There's my son. My son's doing it. He was good at math. So funny. I always go to him now for sports too. I'm trying, what's the guy's name again that did that? And I look at my son and he pulls it off in 1 second.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to have that resource around.
Yeah, it is.
So, I didn't even think about that. I was thinking of a client that you would be working with both on shopper and employee. So in some cases, you're just doing employee. Yeah. In some cases, you're just doing shopper. And I guess in some cases, you are doing both. Is that right?
Right. So the challenge for us as a startup company, really in this case, AVID really is a startup. And we've leveraged our experience and work with Momenta, but it's two different customers for us. The customer who cares about the shopper, our customer, is usually in marketing. It's a marketing department, right? The employee is in the HR department.
Right.
Even though it's one company, it's 2 different departments. And when we can bring the 2 together, it's incredibly powerful. We do maps, so we have a map in our dashboard that shows the health ID score, and we color code it, right? So as you filter this time period, these kinds of shoppers, right? They care about these things. What's their scores? And it colors it. We can overlay the employee and the shopper together And then you can really see which regions of the country for a retailer, like this is, for a retailer, what regions of the country are struggling. And it could be a store level, it could be a region level. And then you can really dig in and there's some commonality there. The employees are saying they don't like the management and they're unhappy. And the customers say the employees are miserable and unhappy. Well, ding, ding, ding. That's simple, right?
Light bulb, right?
Yeah. Oftentimes it's as simple as that. And the insights can be really simple insights, but you have to get to them. So we try to, our positioning as a company, there's three kinds of market research companies that do this kind of work. There's the ones that are about a bunch of staff, and they have, hundreds of employees, they have project managers, and they do one-off projects. It's mostly, one engagement, and it's $50, $100, $200,000 or more for this one project. And they bring a bunch of people on, it's by the hour, and they bill it out. Then there's the other side, which is all technology now. There's some very large companies out there. Some of them are public, and it's very expensive engagements, but they try to really embed and be every day working with their client, pulling all the data together and then showing them the most important insights. They have teams of people, but it's really software based, but they're fairly expensive, really well embedded. And then there's this third kind that's $50 a month. You do your own little thing. It's DIY. I'm doing a survey here or there. I'm paying $50 for an ongoing thing. Those are the three kinds of businesses that are out there besides AVID. And we're doing much more custom, but we're trying to do it for a much lower cost. So our team is spread throughout the world. I mean, literally, AVID is a virtual company. We started as a virtual company. So I have people throughout the world that are working on the platform. So we do technology and we do the custom research. We do both. And we try to blend them where possible. Our platform, our dashboard is very easy for us to innovate and bring new visuals to life for a client. So we're trying to integrate that dashboard visual for most projects now. Even if it's a one-time engagement, we can offer that for a very small additional cost, if any, right? And then you as a client get all the value of having a custom research project, but you also then can go in on your own and you can look at the data and you can, do your own. Today, I'm curious about this thing. So rather than going back to us and saying, bill me by the hour to do this work, you can go in and look at it yourself. So we're trying to blend all of them together, but we're not the $50 a month fly by night. We're really trying to make sure we understand our clients. And every engagement we do, we have a sit-down meeting and go through the results. I have professional market researchers. All of them have at least 10 years experience. There's no newbies on the team at all. When you sign up for an annual subscription, and we're tracking either employee or shopper engagement over the course of a year, we do every 90 days, we do a QBR, a quarterly business review, where we sit down and review in person the results. We also do a monthly report that is online, so you can just log in and see it. But the quarterly ones, we sit down with you and we block out the time to go through and really talk about your business and make sure that we're aligned going forward for the next 90 days. And businesses constantly are evolving, so I think it's really important. So we do not do engagements over the annual engagements unless we have those 90-day check-ins built in.
Yeah, that's great. That really, I would imagine, keeps the whole process on track and keeps everyone learning. So that's awesome. You've really developed a unique offering in terms of insights and research that sounds like almost like a disruptive strategy that there's really not, I would think, any direct competition in.
There's always competition, right? Never say you don't have competitors.
Sure, of course.
But what we're trying to do is blend the custom research with the technology and do it all for a lower cost. And the disruptive part of this is we leveraged a team that's worldwide. I'm leveraging a worldwide team and bringing the best people together for the projects as needed. But because we're leveraging a worldwide team, our costs are much lower and the quality is not lower. The guys that are really high end, it's $1 million engagement. And there's a lot of guys out there. It's $1 million a year to start with these guys. And they're publicly traded and they got to make their numbers. We're trying to do 80% of what they can do. Just 80%. Yeah. Right. But also get almost all of the value that's possible. So I don't think you need to have all the data to get good results. I think if you can get 80% of the way there, you'll get just as good a result. And that last 20% is super expensive. It's not worth it. Product research, you go out and you do a survey on 500 shoppers that meet your criteria for who you think is a target. And you do a project on that for a small amount of money and you get incredibly great insights. You could also spend $250,000 and do focus groups around the country and have real samples made. And there's companies that's their entire business. But you can also spend, a few $1,000 and you can get 80% of the way there. And directionally, it's going to help you tremendously. So we're trying to do that 80% model. And I think that's what's disruptive.
Yeah, that's great. So let's talk ROI for a minute. So someone's looking at your services. I'm sure you talk about this as you're engaging new clients. What does ROI look like for someone that works with AVID?
So we're finding on the shopper side is really easy, right? Because you can measure sales. You can measure sales. So we have found that if you take your shoppers that have a health ID score of less than 80 and you move them to over 90, so you move them at least 10 points, they spend, those current shoppers that are already your shoppers, spend 37% more of their wallet at your store.
Wow.
So they have a fixed wallet, right? Every consumer can only spend so much money. And they depending on the project, we try to define the shopper's total wallet for the products that you sell. It's one of the things we ask. How much do you spend on these kinds of products? So we define it. And then how much do you spend with this retailer? So we define that. So we get this benchmark and we track over time. It's literally, you improve their experience, so their health ID score goes up, they shop. What's that worth? How much do they spend? And we see hundreds of dollars more per year per shopper.
Wow.
Our platform isn't that expensive. Kind of built on sort of volume, right? But you're talking less than $100,000 for a fairly large retailer. We start at $50,000 for an annual product, right? That has 4 reviews a year with the monthly report. So you get a lot of value. It's not for that product. Isn't for if you only have $100,000 total in revenue. It's not for you. But if you spend $50,000, yes, we're seeing hundreds of thousands of dollars in increase in revenue and likewise in profit on that side. And a project base, where it's a $5,000 or maybe a $10,000 project, and that's sort of the higher end for these one-off projects for product development. What's the ROI for having a product? You make one small change to your product and it makes it successful. A packaging update, or a feature that you didn't think was important, it's now important, or a price point change. If you price the product wrong out of the gate, you start with the market down, you're pricing down, you've already sold it for the higher price, and now what are you going to do? Tell the retailer, tell your customer you're going to give them a credit for the difference and mark it down. That never goes over. None of that ever goes over well.
No.
So, you spend a few bucks to get your pricing right, or your packaging right, or the features right. On the employee side, what's the ROI of having less turnover? We see employees happier and healthier and more engaged. It's hard to say we are decreasing turnover, right? It's hard. There's employees that leave for different reasons. And you need a lot of data over a long period of time to be able to say, well, over the last 10 years, we've seen our clients have churn of 8% and the industry average is 12%. So therefore we reduced churn by 4%. And we think that every percent reduction in churn for a company should equal $5,000 a year. So therefore, whatever that part of it's hard. But when your employees are more engaged and they're less likely to leave, it is almost priceless. You know what happens, Clint, when an employee leaves, right? No matter how much training you've done, how much documentation of their job you've done. If you can save one employee a year and you're paying AVID $20,000 a year for a product that delivers for you the insights you need, right? To make a few small changes to your business that aren't even costly to keep that one employee, I'd say that's worth it. I say that's ROI right there, right?
Yeah.
100%. So I'm not trying to talk around it, but we do have some really hard numbers.
Yeah.
Hard numbers. Some of it's softer numbers.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And going back to that WD-40 example, that's a hard example of a culture with happy employees. The value of the company went from about, I don't remember the exact numbers, but around 300 million to 3.5 billion. So, there's some return there.
Oh yeah. There's the stuff we do it's really basic blocking and tackling stuff to talk down my company. I think being able to find those insights, when you find them, like, oh yeah, of course, but you have to find them. Yeah. And then you have to action them. We try to really help prioritize what are the most important insights to action. And so one last thing I want to mention on this whole thing is, so we do surveys, right? We ask questions. We then do analysis. And I don't know how this looks on the screen. This probably looks horrible. I'm much better in person. So we ask the questions, we analyze, and then we display. And all three of those are important to get right. What really frustrates me, because I've been doing this for a long time now, is, we can do our own survey on SurveyMonkey or whatever. And you totally can. And if you ask the question, in one way versus another way, you get totally different answers. You can say that I don't know what I'm talking about. That's fine. I've seen it so many times. And then, by the way, it's not just how you ask it, but it's who you ask the question of. So if you're asking your employees, great, right? But you got to ask them in the right way, and you got to make sure they feel comfortable answering you. And employees don't feel comfortable answering the company when the company's asking.
Right.
So that's a problem. And then on the shopper side, you got to ask the right shoppers in the right way to get good, actionable data. So if you have garbage in, you get garbage out. So you got to make sure you ask the questions the right way. The analysis you do is critical. And then how you're displaying it, it's easy to display it, right? Well, how you display it is sort of part of that insight. It's part of the analysis. So we've spent a lot of time on building our dashboards that we have, but also for every client, like what is important to you? What do you want to see? What are the measures that are important? And so we customize for you in a really easy to understand, easy to use format. But really, the most important thing at the end of the day, asking the right questions in the right way to the right people. For data. When you do the social stuff, it helps. But social is anybody. So you don't know who's even asking, right? So we bring the social in and we definitely look at the social. But I always put more weight to the good survey data we collect because we know it's quality data going in.
Yeah. So what would you say? Give me an example of one of your best success stories so far. Obviously not revealing who it is. Tell me a good success story that you've seen.
So on the shopper side, right? So on the shopper side, the increase in health ID score correlating to share of wallet. I think at the end of the day, you can get new shoppers, and we do work. We do projects around lapsed shoppers, so people who haven't shopped in a long time, finding out why, and people that don't shop but should shop. So we can do it by zip code. So if you have locations in certain areas, right, certain geographic locations, and you have competitors who are also there, we can go out to shoppers who don't shop at your store, but shop at your competitor and are located where they should be shopping with you. And we can find out why they're not shopping with you, right? So there's haven't shopped in a long time, or are currently shopping. And so the biggest success we have that's measurable is on the shopping currently, and we help the retailer make changes that impact the health ID score of those shoppers, and they spend more. And we've seen that. We've seen the share of wallet go up for those shoppers. Now, on the why aren't you shopping, it ends up being simple in the big scheme of things, but being able to tell those store owners why people aren't shopping at their store. And sometimes it's simple things they can do to change. And really a lot of it is around the impression of the store, the cleanliness, the clutter, what product categories that they're selling. They're selling the wrong product. We can do this matrix that shows what product categories are bought together. And I know you have that. If you're a retailer, you have the basket, right? But these are for people that don't shop at your store. What do they buy together? So you can see, oh, we're missing this category. And that's happened. Or we're spending, we have a lot of this category. It's not the best category. The people that aren't shopping, they don't buy any of it. So we've been able to help the retailers think about their merchandising mix, which is also really cool. I mean, I love products, so that's been really cool. On the employee side, simple changes to office environment. People don't want to share desks. People want to have a quiet space. It doesn't need to be full-time, but it needs to be a place they can go to. Lighting is really important. And so you're like, yeah, of course. But, well, for you think you have good lighting. You think you have those quiet spaces, and you don't. And by the way, the bathrooms are so bad, people are going to leave because of the bathrooms. Like, well, bathrooms don't matter. Well, to your employees, they do. And the other benefits, you only want to ask what you're willing to do. You don't want to ask things you're not willing to do. If you say, would a Peloton membership be great for you? Which, by the way, I love Peloton. I'm a huge fan, and I own stock. So this is not a paid endorsement, but don't ask if you're not going to give them a Peloton membership.
Right. You're just making the situation worse if you do that, right?
I'm like, where's my Peloton membership? I said I wanted it. So we counsel our clients on that. What you're asking, how you're asking it, what questions you're asking, who you're asking it to is all super important up front before you launch. And so the $50 a month plan or the Survey Monkey plan isn't going to do that. And these guys that charge you $100,000 to start or $30,000 for a really basic, simple thing, they're overcharging, but you can't blame them because they have big staffs of full-time people that are in the United States with project managers, and they got to pay that rent. Yeah.
So you're high value, low cost structure model.
Yeah, we're a virtual business. We don't have office space.
Yeah.
Right? Momenta does, and I would normally have been there for this call, but I just happened to be home today. But and we use a Momenta office space for meetings when we have them. They have a nice conference room that we use. But AVID as a company is very low cost, 100% in the cloud. We leverage the Microsoft platform for everything. And we use Google, right, for all of our other communications. And it really, it's bringing the cost down. I couldn't have done this business 10 years ago. It wouldn't have worked, even though I've been dreaming about it for a long time. It really is just in the last few years, the technology has evolved to a place where we can actually do it this way and have it be successful. So you nailed it ahead, Clint. You described it pretty well. have to get you out of crafts and get you into software. We'll talk.
Yeah, maybe so. Well, man, I love what you're doing. I hope companies that are listening to this will reach out to you. We'll put in our show notes how to get a hold of you for companies that want to find out more about working with AVID Insights. But I know from knowing you for years how valuable this is. And I think it's great that you are building a company with it by helping suppliers and retailers understand not only how to make customers happy, but also how to make employees happy, which makes the whole company more valuable overall. So kudos to what you guys are doing on the insights front, and hope people will reach out to you and find out more about what you're doing.
Thanks, Clint.
All right, Michael. Hey, thanks for being.
As I thought it was going to be.
What's that?
Wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
See, it's not like going to the doctor, right? Well, hey, thanks for being with us today. It's been fun to visit, and we'll come back to the podcast about how you move out of a day-to-day business and become chairman, because that's another one a lot of people want to know. So thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Clint.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation on the Creative Retail Talks podcast today. Be sure to visit our show notes page for more information on today's show. And if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, reach out to me at clint@creativeretailtalks.com. Creative Retail Talks is all one word. That email address will also be in the show notes. Hope you have a great day.